Welcome to episode 6 of the JOBCAST, the Employment Support Team's podcast aimed at helping you build the skills and confidence to find work. I'm Francesca.
And I'm Dan. And this month, in the month of June, we're going to be talking about the National Month of Community. So there's a lot of stuff happening this month around the theme of community, celebrating communities, shining a light on all of the amazing things that happen in local communities, not just in Southampton, but around the country as well. And particularly for us, the Employment Support Team, communities play a huge role in what we do. So whether that's us taking part in a community event or linking in with local organisations and charities that are going to help people to find work. So with this month of community, there's loads of stuff happening, including Volunteers Week, Carers Week, Loneliness Awareness Week, Refugee Week. That's just a few. So we thought it'd be a really good theme for this month's JOBCAST.
We're joined by Annie from Communicare, who's going to be having a chat with us about volunteering and the benefits that it brings to the local community, as well as the individuals who volunteer. So welcome, Annie.
Thanks very much. It's lovely to be here with you today.
So are you able to just tell us a little bit about Communicare?
Certainly. Communicare is a charity which covers the whole of the city of Southampton. So we're actually Communicare in Southampton. There are other Communicares in the world, but we are an independent charity and we are very much standalone for the city of Southampton. That's very important to us, that this is where our roots are, and these are the people that we seek to serve and work with. Having said all of that, we are very much in touch with the wider world and the bigger community, mainly in this country. We haven't tried to go international yet, but you never know. And that does help us to put into context some of the stuff that we do. So Communicare is all about being a good neighbours network. At the heart of everything we do is the idea that we are befriending, and the way that we do it will be in a variety of different ways, and we're trying to ensure that we provide people with both practical and emotional support. So in the pre-pandemic world, that meant that pretty much everything we did was face-to-face. We were doing home visits, visiting people who were stuck at home, not able to get out and about, which of course, for all of us last year was everybody. But we also do things like shopping for or with people, a bit of DIY and gardening, providing transport, a whole range of different things like that. And then, of course, last year, when the pandemic did hit us, we had to think very hard about what were we going to do so that we didn't leave all these people stuck and bereft with no contact with anybody. And so during that year, we've also transitioned to being able to provide telephone support and quite a lot of postal support. They're the two main key areas that we've moved into as well. But the sort of mission behind what we're doing remains the same. We're there to befriend and to try to make sure that people don't feel that they no longer belong, or maybe have never belonged, that they don't have a sense of belonging and a connection with their community.
Good. That's awesome. Yeah, that all sounds great. So we'll have a chat about all of that in a bit more detail as we go on with the podcast. So yeah, starting off then, month of community. I thought it would just be quite cool to just have a chat between the three of us, really, about what the term community means to us. So Annie, I don't know, do you want to start us off? What does community mean to you?
Well, community is the people who are around you, and the way in which you interact with those people will determine how community feels to you. So there are all sorts of ways that we can connect with the people around us, And actually, for every individual, what feels right about how they connect with the people around them will determine the community that they are a part of. And so, I mean, ideally, your community is very much on your doorstep a lot of the time, your neighbours, the people who don't live all that far away from you. But there's also this idea that we connect with the people with whom we've got similar interests, or the people who are going to encourage us to get involved in different sorts of ways. So community can mean a whole load of different things to very different people. I was in a very, very interesting session over the last couple of weeks, actually. We're fortunate enough to have some funding from the National Lottery, and they've been doing some work with the groups who are receiving funding from them here in Southampton over the last couple of weeks to talk about how Southampton operates as a community and what the funding from the National Lottery has meant to those groups. So we've been very much talking about what makes Southampton a community, what is special in the community here, and how does that differ from other places, and what do we value? And some of the things that have been coming out have been really interesting. So it reminded me, this isn't something new to me, but it reminded me of the importance in Southampton of the sheer diversity of our community. You know, sometimes I take that for granted, actually, that we have the opportunity to get to know and really enjoy being with such a wide range of different people. Not every city has got that opportunity. And in Southampton, a lot of us do really embrace and love that colourfulness of what it brings to our community. And I think that was something that I was very much reminded of. And going along with that was the whole thing about Southampton actually being very vibrant. There's loads that happen in Southampton. Some of the time you actually have no idea about it. We're also not always the greatest at making sure that everybody knows what is going on. But some of that is because of the sheer creativity. And one of the things that we decided contributed to that was having two very different universities here with a massive student population who bring so much to our city in terms of, you know, this whole vibrancy and zest for the world, I suppose.
Yeah.
We've worked together for way too long there. Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said, Annie. I mean, I think for me also the important thing is that communities just aren't the community in which we live in. I think we all find ourselves in very different communities. So, you know, thinking about sort of sports and hobbies, you know, when my daughter was involved with diving, for instance, that was a very close-knit community, and it was people who supported and encouraged and mentored, and I think, you know, we're very lucky, certainly in the city, with having so many different opportunities and things, that those communities, it's like you've got kind of silo communities as well, but within a really big community. And I think, yeah, I mean, I think you're right. It's a very vibrant city, and I think that we are very lucky to have as much open space and things as we've got as well. So that allows us to be a community outside, as well as, you know, being interlinked with lots of different sort of inside activities and things. So, but yeah,
that was another thing that did come up, actually, that we are incredibly fortunate in Southampton with our open spaces, and you know, long may that last. And also the idea that we need to both look after them, but also make sure that we're aware of opportunities to expand, extend, and that's not always about taming. It's
No.
not always about let's find this space and tidy it up.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about let's find this space and allow it to be wild.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. That's funny you should say that, actually, when we're looking out the window now, outside the Civic Centre, and there's the wild flowers that have just been allowed to grow, with the grass cut around it. So yeah, definitely.
It looks very pretty. I think it's better now that there's a sign up saying that it is a wildlife garden, rather than it just looking like maybe somebody had missed to, you know, they've forgotten to mow the middle bit, because it's mowed around the outside, and then you've got these sort of tall flowers and things. But it's very pretty, very beautiful.
So before that, it just looked like somebody had got bored halfway through the mowing job.
Yeah, just thought, I'm not going to do it anymore. But they've mowed all the way around it, so it's got a nice mowed border and then the flowers. But yeah, but it's all around the Civic, and it looks very, very pretty.
Yeah, I think all things like that, like, you know, that's one thing that we've mentioned, but there's so many things like that, and you know, with just being in connection with nature, and we've talked about mental health a lot, and with the wellbeing weeks and mental health awareness weeks, and actually just that connection with nature that you can have, and that's something that a lot of our local communities are tapping into. You've got like the community gardening groups, community allotments, community litter picking. So yeah, that's all really cool stuff. I never really thought of that in that context until we talked about it now.
Yeah, and I think I love the point that you made about, actually it's not just about tidying an area up, it's about letting it be. So Hoglands Park, for instance, I love Hoglands Park. I embrace the graffiti on the walls and things, because it's a space that is a really creative space. Obviously you've got the skate park and things. It hosts so many different events throughout the year. You've got the Mellor Festival. We used to have the K2 Festival, which was aimed at young people, and they have the play days down there. So, I just think as a space, it's a lovely area, because it just allows people to be who they want to be and to come together. Because I think there's also a cricket ground as well there, isn't there?
Is that the cage cricket? Is that where the cage cricket is going to be?
Yeah, I think yeah. We've not long been able to actually all be in a building together, so I actually haven't been down that end of town probably for about 14 months now. So.
Well, I have. I was there this last weekend with a guest who was staying with us, a 12-year-old boy, with his scooter on that skate area, which was an eye-opener to me, because I am now definitely going to be aspiring to become one of those scooter artists who can do all this skating around. But he wouldn't lend me his scooter to have a go.
That's not fair. You should at least share.
Well, apparently he wasn't convinced I was going to be able to do these stunts very effectively. And so I'm going to have to train myself through visualization. I know, Cheska, that you'll understand that all the top coaches say that one of the things that you can do in elite sport is to spend time visualizing being able to do it well. And I have to tell you, I can already do some stunts very effectively when I'm visualizing them.
Well, I'll look forward to seeing them actually in person.
Well, at the moment, I have no way of having a scooter to have a go.
I'm sure we can find you a scooter.
Just make sure you're wearing a helmet as well.
Yeah. Safety
first.
He was wearing a helmet. I can tell you, he was wearing a helmet at the time.
So yeah, that's really interesting thoughts and ideas there.
Yeah.
I think as well, for me, community is people. I think that's the word I think that comes to mind with me. And I think certainly with the job that I do as an employment officer, certainly before the pandemic, when we could go out, but actually being able to go out into the local communities that we worked in, so our work clubs and and things like that, and just the diversity of the people that you'd meet and the people who would be supporting them, people within the community that were the kind of, you know, that phrase, pillars of the community and that kind of thing. I think that's all really inspiring stuff, actually. That's really good to.
Yeah, I have to say, I don't staff work clubs anymore, but we've not been able to run them for 18 months, but sort of moving forward, you know, the idea of being back out in the community and having the work clubs running and not knowing who's going to walk through the door, what you're going to have to help them with, whether it's, you know, sitting down and doing a CV with somebody, or whether it's giving some information, advice and guidance, or signposting them to a different service, and just you know, the variety, and knowing that you might not ever see that person again, but hoping that just something that you said is going to resonate with them or help them. Maybe not immediately, maybe in, you know, a year or so's time, but if they just reflect on one thing that you said and it helps them, then, you know, that's brilliant. And I know that the team are really looking forward to getting back out there and sort of starting up the work clubs again. We've already got our central work club at the central library, so that's up and running now. And then we're starting back in Bitton in a couple of weeks, and Northern Community Centre in a couple of weeks as well. So things are starting to return back to normal, which will be really nice. And I'm sure that we're not the only ones who are just, you know, really excited to be out and about and start talking to people again. And, you know.
Yes, and I think that there is a real desire for that amongst some of us, but there are also an awful lot of people who are actually really quite worried about going back to that normal socialisation. That's certainly something that we are both seeing and expecting within the group of people that we support at Communicare, because, you know, for a year we've been saying to people, not me personally, but, you know, the community has been saying to them, be very careful.
Yeah.
There's a lion raging out there who is going to leap on you the minute you set foot outside your door. And changing that mindset back to actually being out in your community and socialising is quite a hard change of mindset, because for very good reasons, a lot of these people we support were very much confined to home because they would be considered to be a part of the community who would have been particularly at risk of catching that virus and getting a really bad dose of it, it not going well for them. So and in that time also, a lot of people will have found that they what's called deconditioned. So, you know, they're not as steady on their feet anymore. They're not as strong. And also they don't know what the new rules are. They haven't been out very much experiencing how you queue, how you use the one-way system in the shop. Don't know about you, but I've managed to get myself into trouble by not following the one-way system correctly, quite inadvertently. And it's, you know, there's all sorts of help and stuff to make sure that you do get it right, don't get me wrong, but it feels scary. That's on top of this whole thing about, is it safe? And so we know that we're going to have to do a lot of hand holding, and I don't mean that in the literal sense, because of course we need to keep socially distanced. So hand holding at a 2-meter distance. We know that we will need to help people to get used to being back into socialising. So they may be looking forward to it, but also be nervous.
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point, and I think, you know, certainly when the first lockdown happened and COVID, you know, appeared very quickly, really, everybody showed a lot of compassion and patience, and everybody rallied around. And I think actually we're now going to have to do that again, but we're going to have to rally round and be patient and supportive of people who are starting to come back out and build up their confidence. And like you say, you know, people will in their minds still be absolutely fine with the idea of walking down Southampton High Street or walking down Bitton High Street, but actually what they can do in their mind and then what their body is physically going to allow them to do, not even taking into consideration how they might feel when they're stood in the middle of crowds and things like that. Actually, that's something to really think about, and I guess that's where we're going to start seeing the community come together again.
Yeah.
Is, you know, people are going to just naturally want to help others and just maybe have those check-ins with people. You know, you're looking a bit bewildered. Are you okay? Those sorts of conversation.
I think the trick always is in all of these situations, if you can take your own spectacles off, as it were, and try to put yourself in the shoes of that other person that you're seeing. How are they seeing this situation? Not how am I seeing it, but how are they seeing this situation? Why is it that they may be looking scared or they may be looking bewildered? If you can manage to do that and then act empathetically and compassionately, then there's more likelihood that you're going to be able to help somebody through what, for a moment, it might only be a moment, is a period of confusion and disorientation, which if we can be compassionate, will only be a moment. But if we don't handle that in the right sort of way, then that could not just blight that moment, but an awful lot around it as well. It adds to the fear factor.
Yeah, definitely.
It just highlights the importance of community, doesn't it, really, and how that everyone rallying together is just so important. So yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for sharing those thoughts. So we're going to move on now to volunteering. So at the time that we're recording this, it's the middle of Volunteers Week. So the theme this year for Volunteers Week is saying thank you to the volunteers. And I think especially after the last year that we've had and the impact that volunteering has had, not just on volunteers actually being able to help people and make that difference, but actually for people to be able to volunteer and, you know, to get out and feel that in a time where there's a lot of restrictions, a lot of limitations, that they can actually still make a difference to people. So I thought we could have a chat just about volunteering. So from our point of view, me and Francesca thinking about the employment benefits that come with it, but also Annie from your point of view as well about the benefits that come with volunteering.
Well, first of all, the first thing that I need to say is I don't want to boast, but our team of volunteers, or communities as we call them, are the most amazing in the whole world. And we could not possibly wish for a better group than the one that we have. They are absolutely amazing. And one of the things that illustrated that in the first instance was when we went into this situation last year with the pandemic, their absolute willingness to say, well, we can't do this now. How can we carry on helping? How can we adapt? And just their ability and willingness to take that flexible approach. They were worried about making sure that everyone that we were helping and supporting at that time continued to have help and support, even if it couldn't be exactly what we'd done before. And, you know, they could very easily simply have said to us, oh, well, we can't go out now, so that's it. You know, James is going to have to fend for himself, sort of thing. But no, absolutely not. And during the course of the year, we have been thrilled by the fact that we have had a great influx of additional communities, and we pride ourselves as well in trying to ensure that when somebody comes to us, we are as interested in what they want to do how they want to do it, how it can fit around their lives and all of those things. So having that flexibility, treating everybody as an individual, as we are interested in what's in it for us. This is a relationship, and you know, the success of the organisation and what it can do in the city is based on the fact that we have these amazing, so at the moment we have 359 communiteers across the city, and clearly there is absolutely no way our staff team of just 9 people, well actually it works out at only about 6 people full-time equivalents, if you like, could possibly do the things that are happening out there. It relies on that huge team of amazing people. But if you talk to those people about their volunteering experience, pretty much every time I speak to anybody, they say to me, well, I get far more out of this than the people I help. This is just an amazing thing to be involved with. I love what I do. And that is my common experience. People just, once given the opportunity to do the thing that they feel that they can contribute, it's mind-boggling, the outcome of that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I volunteered with you, helped at the services, the COVID clinics and things, and was also a telephone befriender, and I loved doing it. I loved just being able to make that tiny difference. But I think also it really helped. So sort of talking to some of the other volunteers and things at the clinic, it was around sort of people wanting to have that social contact, wanting to do something good, not knowing how they can make a difference. So, standing in a car park in the pouring rain, but helping people in and out of cars so that they can go and have their vaccinations and things. Actually watching other people get so much from it, and the teamwork and the communication skills, all of those things that you can put into a CV and use as an example in a job interview and things. Those are, the transferable skills that you get from any type of volunteering is invaluable. And, I loved my time volunteering for you, and I loved being a telephone befriender, and it made me very sad to have to give it up. But it was a lovely opportunity. And also, I think for me, it's about that intergenerational kind of communication as well. So some of the gentlemen that I was talking to were quite a bit older than myself, and I'd hear all sorts of lovely stories and have some lovely conversations. So I think you do get a lot out of it, but also you gain so many skills that you probably didn't even know you had, and it's great for examples and interviews and application forms and things as well.
I have to say though, Francesca, my thoughts about your enjoying that volunteering was some of it was all a fashion statement for you. You just loved that super bright neon pink jacket thing that you were wearing, and that's what it was all about, really. She was looking incredibly keen to don that jacket and get out there in the car park. I've got photos of it to prove it, I can tell you.
Yeah, unfortunately you do have, but pink wouldn't necessarily be the colour I would have gone for. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm definitely not a pink person. But yeah, no, you're quite right. Nobody could miss me. I definitely stood out. So yeah.
So there you can see that actually she was made to, prepared to make personal sacrifice and go for a different colour, but it was still definitely a fashion statement. Take it from me, I could see that. That combined with the jazziness of her face covering mask thing. Yeah. But no, you're absolutely right about that whole thing about transferable skills, actually, and just the whole thing about learning to be with people and learning to think about how they're seeing the world, all of that. That's a skill that you can't do unless you just go out there and practice it. And it's also, when you volunteer, you're sort of in control to a certain extent in a way you aren't once you actually get into your job or your career, not in quite the same way. And it gives you a chance to try out things and work out and, you know, find for yourself what you're good at, what you enjoy, what things you, sometimes it means that you think to yourself, well, I'm definitely not going to do that as a paid job. But typically you will find that if you've picked up things, volunteering opportunities that appeal to you, actually you will find the bits that you think, okay, now I know that I would like to be in this world, and this is the niche that I would like to fill in this world. So now I need to go looking for a job that's going to allow me to do that. And in the interview, I can tell you now, because I'm one of the people who interviews people to be members of our staff team, people will say to you, tell us about a time that you did. And you will be able to say, Francesca would now be able to say, well, I volunteered at this vaccination clinic, and I learned how to be prepared to wear pink when my natural colour is yellow. And straight away, the interviewer thinks, well, she knows what she's talking about because she's done it. She's not making up some hypothetical, this is what I do. She actually knows what she's talking about. She's experienced it. I'm using a very, you know, facetious example there. There will be real times that you're asking somebody to say, explain to me how you did this, what you did, what your thought processes were. You will be able to say that in an interview with confidence, where people who haven't tried it won't.
Yeah, no, you're quite right. And I wonder how many volunteers from sort of vaccination clinics across the country are now thinking, do you know what, actually, I'd quite like to go into nursing, or I'd like to go into caring, or just because, you know, they've been exposed to it, they've given it a go. And like you say, they've had the control to be able to just try it, and, you know, and decided that maybe that's something they want to sort of look into.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it does just do exactly that. It gives you an insight into what's available. I can remember when my daughter was aged 2, and she said to me, when I grow up, I'm going to be a dustbin lady, and on the days when I'm not doing that, I'm going to work in a toy shop. And I said, well, that's really interesting choice. Why do you think that you're only going to need to be a dustbin lady for 1 day a week or whatever? So she said, well, they only come 1 day a week. And at that point, she would be at the window, because in those days, health and safety was slightly different. She would be in the window waiting for that lorry to come, and she would insist that we rushed out so that she could push the button on there, and you know, so the crusher works in the dustbin lorry. But you know, so but all of this was because she'd already experienced at the age of 2 getting involved in some of the stuff that was going on. So the point I'm making, although that's an amusing example, is that unless you get yourself out there, you won't know what possibilities there are. And I'm a great one for just get out there and give it a go. And then from that, you will gain ideas, but also eliminate stuff that you can see that actually that wouldn't be for me.
Yeah,
because I'd have to wear pink all the time, and it really would be for me. That type of thing. So Jessica knows she doesn't want to be a car park attendant in a particular place, because it would require her to be wearing pink.
It wasn't just that, people weren't able to see me behind cars because I'm so short. So that didn't work either. I was trying to wave and tell people that they could come and park here, but they couldn't see me over the cars in front of me. So yeah, but I don't
recall you requesting stilts.
This is very true. I should have asked for aids and adaptation.
Exactly. You could easily have said to us, this would be a reasonable adjustment for me to be able to do my work safely if I had stilts. And then I would have said, we'll have to do a risk assessment on your steadiness on stilts.
And with some of the wheelchairs in the hills, I don't think it would have been a very safe thing, definitely not. But I mean, I think also the really common, like, sort of idea behind volunteering is that it's really, you know, there's only a few volunteering opportunities. So, you can work in charity shops and you can sort of help out in sort of day centres. But I think what's really important is that you can literally volunteer doing anything. I had somebody who came into a work club once and said, I don't want to work, but I want to do some volunteering. And I said, okay, what would you like? I don't know. What you're interested in? I can't tell you because you'll laugh. So I won't laugh, tell me. And he said, well, I like bees. And I said, okay. So you want to volunteer with bees? And he was not so keen to say, yes, definitely. And I said, okay. He said, well, you won't find me anything that I want to do. And I said, give me a week. And I found him the opportunity to volunteer at a little farm that had their own hives and things. And, a couple of hours a week, and he was really happy. I think people need to just really think about what interests them, where their passions are, and just go and find. And certainly doit.org is a really good website for sort of just finding out. And even if you just don't know what you want to do, but you know that you want to volunteer one day a week, you can put it in the search bar and see what comes up. But I think if one positive thing can come from this podcast is that people just realise that there are so many different volunteering opportunities. And even if it's being a school governor, or even if it's sitting on a committee for, one of the many charities that we have, both, within our own community in Southampton, but also sort of nationally, it's all important stuff, isn't it? There's no volunteer that doesn't do something that's really important.
Yeah, and a good place in Southampton is to go to So Linked.
Yeah.
So they should have a lot of the opportunities available in this city across a whole wide range of things. You mentioned there becoming a school governor, and I have to say that was one of the best volunteering opportunities that I personally took up. It taught me so much. Because I had the opportunity for really, really high quality training that came free with the job. Because when you're a school governor, the act of becoming a school governor is a voluntary one. But actually, once you've taken that on, you do have legal obligations. And so we were given the opportunity to do really high quality training to make sure that we could do what we were expected to do as a governor. Honestly, the stuff that I learned through that was amazing, and I certainly have used it ever since in the jobs that I've been involved with. Those sorts of opportunities don't come your way easily.
No, they
don't. So that's something that I always say, if there was just one single thing in my life that I would go back and do again, I would become a school governor.
Yeah, I mean, I can completely echo that. I was a governor for 6 years, and yeah, I absolutely loved it. I had some really great training opportunities, but also, like you say, learned so much. And I think it's also really important to just realise that you don't have to have a child in the school to be a governor. They want community governors. They want people who have got experience. So, people have got experience in finance or, business sort of communications and all of those areas. They're the people that they want. So yeah, I think being a governor is great. It certainly taught me that I didn't want to work with young children. I loved being in there doing my governory bit, but at the end of the day I could walk away and come back to my paid job. And for me that just sort of solidified that I was definitely doing the right thing. That as much as I love being creative and sitting and cutting up bits of paper and playing with PVA glue and things, actually it's not something that I want to do all day, every day. So,
well, what it taught me was that there was no point whatever in me thinking that it would be a good idea to have a career in catering. I used to go in and help with some of their cookery sessions, and on this, with this particular class, their cookery session happened just before assembly. So at assembly time, they would go off to assembly and leave me in charge of the biscuits. And every time they would say, please, Mrs. Clulo, don't burn our biscuits. I was well known for it. So I knew that a career in catering was probably not for me.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
it's important to recognise where your skills are and where you have skills, and yeah, absolutely.
I would have needed a lot of training.
But yeah, I think it's important for people to just volunteer, even if it's just once in their life, but to just do something, because I think it adds so much value and teaches you so much.
Yeah, I agree. And it's fun. It is absolutely so much fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think that's a good note to end on. It's good fun, and yeah,
give it a go.
Give it a go. See what happens. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, and I would just say that we, one of our employed members of staff in our team now, actually came to us originally really effectively through her volunteering. So she was volunteering at one of the lunch clubs that we're involved with, that we work in partnership with an organisation, and that's how she came to know about Communicare. As a result of that, she applied for a job with us, and she ultimately was successful in getting that post, but she'd have not known about us or understood or had the examples that I was talking to you about bringing to interview, where she clearly really understood what we needed in our team. She really understood that, and so she ended up with a very good job for herself at that point in time. And so it can lead very directly into employment as well as indirectly into employment.
Definitely.
Opens a lot of doors, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Well, that's brilliant. So thank you, Annie, so much for joining us, and thank you everybody for listening to our musings on communities and volunteering. So next month we're going to be talking about self-employment and running your own business. So we're talking about, what it takes, what's involved, what you can expect. So if you've got any questions that you'd like us to answer, or anything you'd like to know about becoming self-employed or running a business, get in touch, leave us a comment, tweet us. All of the contact details, as always, are on access-southampton.co.uk/JOBCAST. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Take care, Annie.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's been lovely to have this conversation.